What up? And the stream has begun, and we're back. Even though this is our second stream back, in some ways it kind of feels like the first one, because yesterday we had a guest, so things went a little bit different. You know, it's always different when we have a guest. A guest. I said guest. When we have a guest. Time for a little more coffee. That's what has to happen next. So good morning, good morning, good morning. Howdy, howdy, Joseph. How are you, buddy? Good to see you. We're going to try to get to the yellow vest thing today, but it might be on tomorrow's agenda. Because got a lot today. People were sending a lot, which is really good, and the Reddit had some stuff in it. So I had to get to it. We are early. M. Oss, what's up? Howdy, howdy. It was so wonderful to meet you. It was absolutely wonderful to meet you in person in Orlando. I hope you had fun. We had a blast that show. That show was... The entire run was really, really fun. Jacksonville was a blast. Gainesville was a blast. Orlando was a blast. Miami was a blast. We had so much fun in Florida. K-Line report, what's up? Hey, Ron, Graham says New York City in June. That's absolutely correct, David. We haven't confirmed all the details yet, but yes, we will be doing an East Coast tour in June. New York City is on the list. So far, the dates that have been confirmed, June 12th, we're in Washington, D.C., and June 16th, we're in New Haven, Connecticut. But we're on the brink of confirming some more dates there. Karen, what's up? How are you? Oh, and in July, we're going to go to Minneapolis and Madison and some surrounding area there. And then the rest of 2019, we're still working on. Oh, man. So we're a little bit early. It might take us a few minutes to get to 30 because we are about 6 minutes early. But that's a good problem to have, right? I like being early. It's not my usual MO. Usually not early. But, you know, we got a lot to talk about today. Teacher strike is going on. Also, some of you guys have sent me stuff on vegan lunch meat. If that happens to be one of you guys, I know there's only 9 of us so far, but if it happens to be one of the 9, please retweet that to me, or better yet, if you don't mind, email it to me, because I need to look into that. So somebody, I know some of you guys have sent me some vegan lunch meat information. If you wouldn't mind resending it, if that's you, that'd be great. ronplagone.com, best way to email me. But, you know, I can always look at it. I can just Google it and figure it out myself. But, you know, some of you guys had specific recommendations. And if you wouldn't mind resending it, that'd be super. What's up, Susan? Good to see you. And Emos, thanks for the shout out. And, yeah, I look forward to New York City in June. Hopefully it's not underwater. I don't think it'll be. And once we get to 30, we will get started. Oh, and also, I have to mention something else here. So yesterday on the show, we did an interview with Franz Nicolay of the Hold Steady, and I didn't get to see the chat at all. We started late, so it was kind of like, you know, I really wanted to just piece it together. He only had so much time on his end. So, you know, I did just kind of dismount the show with him, as I typically do when we have a guest. And I missed a super chat from Anthony. So, Anthony, first of all, if you're out there, thank you so much for the super chat contribution. And also, Anthony said that our 1-year anniversary was on January 9th, so the super chat was for a happy belated birthday to this show. So, thank you, Anthony, for that super chat contribution. Thank you very much. And thank you for recognizing that. I actually wasn't sure the exact day we started on YouTube, but it was January 9th, so we just recently celebrated our 1-year birthday as a show, and that's freaking awesome, and thank you guys so much for making that possible. When I started this show, I had no idea if people were going to respond to it, if people were going to like the format. I had no clue. And when it started, it was pretty much about 5 or 6 of us just tweeting articles while I would go through them. Now it has grown, and hopefully it will continue to grow. And the only reason it grew at all was because of you guys being so freaking cool. If you guys didn't send awesome articles and send awesome ideas, the show just would be non-existent. It wouldn't exist. So shit. Thank you guys so much. And yeah, it's our happy belated 1 year. And thank you very much, Anthony. I don't know if you're in the chat right now. I'm not seeing you. Hippopalooza, Rick and Morty t-shirt. You know it. Long Beach morning. That was a great show. I bought his book. I'm assuming you're referring to Franz Nicolay. Long Beach, you will love that book. It is a very, very fun read. Really fun read. Kayline, been watching Anthony Bourdain's Parts Unknown. Have you seen favorite episode? I've definitely seen some Anthony Bourdain stuff. My favorite episode is the episode he did about Detroit. Although I thought he was kind of a little like shitty in the way he was talking about Detroit. Like not intentionally, but some of it came off as like, come on, really, dude? Cheer for the underdog. What's up, Watson? Good to see you. But nonetheless, that was still my favorite episode. I really appreciated it. What's up, Marcia? Good to see ya. We're almost at 30. And the show will officially begin once we're at 30. In the meantime, guys, have a little bit of coffee. Have some fruit. I don't know why fruit. I like fruit in the morning. I know some people do, some people don't. The first time I ever made breakfast for my now fiance, I had a bunch of fruit and toast with Nutella on it. And unbeknownst to me, that wasn't really her thing in the morning. I worked really hard because I'm not a breakfast guy. Like, I'm just not a breakfast guy at all. That's why I do intermittent fasting, because, you know, I don't eat until after 11 a.m., so I can just have lunch immediately. So I really, like, making breakfast for me was an uphill climb. And I worked really hard, but it wasn't her thing. She appreciated it anyway, which was cool. What's up, Matthew? Good to see you. We are almost at 30. Once we're at 30, the show will officially begin. And we are just at about 10 a.m., so we'll be starting here in just a few moments. And it feels good to be back, by the way. I know we had a little break because I was on the road, which, by the way, shout out again to everyone who came out in Florida. It was amazing. It was so much fun. Our next run is in March, and we're going to go to the Gulf area. We're going to New Orleans. We're going to Pensacola, Florida. We're going to Lafayette, Louisiana, and we're going to Oxford, Mississippi, which I'm real excited about. Guys, we are at 30. Welcome to Get Your News On with Ron, the world's first viewer-curated streaming news show. What does that mean? That means you guys send me articles, you send me ideas, and that's how we do the show. I'm seeing everything for the first time. You guys are seeing everything for the first time. It's the chaos, and it's beautiful chaos. Guys, first of all, I was doing a couple quick shout-outs before the show officially began. I'll reiterate one more time. Shout out to Anthony, who gave a Super Chat contribution yesterday. I missed his Super Chat because we had a guest on, and I wasn't cognizant of the chat. We started a little bit late. So, Anthony, sorry I didn't get to that yesterday, but thank you so much for the Super Chat. And thank you for the reason for the Super Chat. Anthony was giving a Super Chat because we had just celebrated 1 year as a show. Our first show on YouTube was on January the 9th. And, oh, there we go. There's an ad. That's awesome. That's really cool. I love that. Love that. Makes me so happy. Okay. Anthony was celebrating that and giving us a thing to celebrate our 1 year anniversary as a show. So, happy belated birthday. Get your news on with Ron. Thank you to all you to make it possible. If you guys weren't awesome, we wouldn't have made it a year. We just wouldn't have. It wouldn't have happened. If you guys just sent bullshit or didn't send anything at all, this show would be non-existent. I just would have been like, well, I guess this concept's not going to work. Show's over. But you guys are awesome, so the show has happened for a year, and it continues to happen. And I rely on it. I love starting my morning doing this with you guys. I wouldn't want to get my news on any other way. And going around the country and meeting some of you that feel the same way, it means an awful lot. It means a fuck ton. It means more than you realize. It's like the polar opposite of an ad just playing in your face. Like the ad playing in your face, how fucking annoying that is. Imagine the opposite of that on the end of joy. And that's what doing Get Your News On with Ron. That's how it feels for me. And I hope it feels the same way for you. The opposite of a shitty ad popping up in your face. It's like the joy, hey, happy, we're getting our news on thing in your face. Right? I'll go with it. Okay, so here's what I wanted to start out with. So we've already seen this. You already know about this. It happened yesterday. But I wanted to use it as my question for today. So Trump serves McDonald's and Burger King to the visiting Clemson football team. Clemson won the VCS Bowl, and as a result, they were honored at the White House. And because there's the government shutdown, Trump was on his own to figure out what to do, and he decided to give them fast food. I wonder, did they get a, hey, I'm one of the best college athletes in the world, and all I got was this lousy Big Mac t-shirts? Was that included? Was that included? And I tweeted this. If somebody would have told me, hey, someday going to the White House to be honored involves meeting a reality television star and getting fast food, that wouldn't surprise me. Especially if somebody would have told me in the year 2004. Why? Because George W. Bush was president. I knew that there was no floor by then. Nothing would have... Some people were like, I'm shocked by this. You shouldn't be shocked by it. You shouldn't be shocked by it. Oh, and by the way, some of the people that are like, don't criticize him for that. It sounds pretentious. No, it freaking doesn't. The president is the most powerful person in the world, arguably. Okay? They can splurge. When they're honoring somebody at the White House, they can splurge on some catering. I'm sorry. Trump could have opened up his pocketbook and splurged on a little bit of catering. He did the fast food. Why? Because it saved him a buck. I'm sorry. That's not an unreasonable ask of the most powerful person in the world. To have decent catering for people that are being honored in your White House. In the White House. It's not unreasonable. Oh, but Ron, they're college kids. That's what they like. Really? Did you not appreciate food until you were in your 30s? Did you go to your high school prom? If you did they serve you Big Macs? Because, oh, you're in high school. You must not appreciate anything else. I went to my high school prom. We had a dinner there that had a buffet. That was of reasonable quality. It was good. Should we have not had that? Should they have had Big Macs for us because we were under 30? You think college kids don't appreciate good food? You think they didn't go to the White House? Anyway, you get my point. But the reason I bring this up is not to necessarily go through the article. We all know what happened. Trump served the Clemson team Big Macs, Burger King, Wendy's, Domino's Pizza, and French fries. My question is, and the reason I brought this up, if you were being honored at the White House, would you go? You know, whether you're an athlete or whatever else. And, you know, for the sake of this question, you have the same mindset you currently have. You can't be like, well, if I was just a 20-year-old athlete, I don't know how I would feel. No. You have your same mindset. You feel the exact same way you do as a person. You're just, for whatever reason, being honored at the White House. What, maybe you were on a team. We'll go with that. You're on a team. You won a championship. Would you go? Because keep in mind, some people made the decision not to go. There have been invitations that have been taken away in recent years. I think the article points that out. Yeah. So here we go. I'll read this part real quick. Some championship athletes and teams have opted to forego the traditional White House visit since Trump took office. The president rescinded invitations to the NBA's Golden State Warriors and the NFL's Philadelphia Eagles. I remember when that happened. I'm sure you do too. In recent years, after players on each team criticized Trump or indicated they did not plan to attend. So, my question for the day, thought it'd be a fun one. If you were in one of those situations, would you attend? Or would you not attend? Would you protest, say I'm not attending? Or would you attend? And if you would, what's your reason for attending? Maybe you have an interesting reason. Maybe you have a particular reason why you would attend. Why did I do this? Why did I do that? That looked weird. That was why you would attend. Would you attend? Would you? Would you? It looks stupid. It's almost like it's like Richard Nixon meets Bernie Sanders a little bit, this thing, right? Like it's kind of a combination of both. I don't know. I'm still waking up. So let me see what you guys are saying. Then I'm going to give my answer. And I have a quirky answer. Oh, and by the way, for the sake of this question, you are answering it in the now. So it's not like, well, who's the president? No, Trump is the president. You'd be visiting Trump. So, no hypotheticals about other presidents. It happens to you now. You are being honored at the White House. Would you or wouldn't you go? All right, let me see what you guys are saying. Let's see. Daniel says, hit them likes, and I agree. Please do hit those likes. Thank you very much. John Tyree says, McDonald, Trump, the Burger King. K-Line says, I would probably go just so I can smack down the establishment with facts. Then I would get kicked out. There you go. That's a cool answer. So some people would go so they could confront leadership. Pat Hacker asks, are they serving snacks? We can only imagine. Tucker says, I'd go just to have the chance to tell. Wow. Tucker, you and I are parallel thinkers here. I'd go just to have the chance to tell Trump, this is what Tucker's saying, to support Medicare for all. Because that would boost his approval rating, which his ego would love that. Chris, go and tell Trump to ditch Pence in 2020 and get Rand Paul on board instead. Emma says they would do what the K-Line report did. They would go. If MSNBC will attack you, if you don't go, Fox will have a go at you. It's a lose-lose. So if you go, MSNBC will attack you. If you don't go, Fox will have a go at you. It's a lose-lose. All right, I can see that. Matthew, I'd go with a Bernie shirt on. So some of you guys are saying you'd go. That's interesting. Creative Experiments pointing out that Trump may get rid of Pence. I've heard grumblings about that. Nothing substantial as of yet. So here's my answer. I also would go. And Tucker, you and I have some parallel thoughts here. I would go to try to talk to him about Medicare for all. Would I get a chance to even talk to him? Probably not. I mean, I know that you're like a team alone with the president, but I'd imagine he always has people surrounding him. I doubt you'd really get to sit down and talk with him. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. I've never been honored at the White House before. I have no idea how that goes. And I'm assuming it is something that will never happen to me. And I'm quite okay with that. But I would go in this situation, and what I would try to do is I would try to convince Trump on Medicare for all. The way I would go about it, I'd be like, Trump, man, I would kind of like use a little bit of reverse psychology. First of all, I would find out the CEO's name of like Blue Cross and Blue Shield or something like that. Or just some other health insurance industry, like big company, like Cigna, whatever. And I'd be like, man, I was talking to insert CEO's name here. And he was saying how he's really glad you're never going to do Medicare for all because that would really screw him over. And right now, he's richer than you are. That's what he's saying. I don't know if it's true or not. He's a family friend. And he's saying that he's so much richer than you. And by the way, I'm using the word he because pretty much all of the health insurance industry CEOs are male. That we did a story on that before. That's a fact. They're almost all male. So I'm not assuming. But anyway, so I'd be like, I'm talking to him. He's saying he's richer than you. He's saying he's richer than me. Yeah, Trump, he's saying he's richer than you, buddy. I don't know what that's all about, but he's saying he's richer than you. And he's saying he's glad you're never going to do Medicare for all because that would really screw him over. You might be richer than him if you do that. He'll still be rich, but you might be richer than him. Then all of a sudden, Trump's like, wait a second. Now it becomes a measuring contest, which is the only thing Trump cares about or understands. If you make it about him having more power over someone else, he'll listen. And that's all. You can't be like, Medicare for all would help people. He doesn't care. He doesn't care. He can't even understand that. This is a guy who has been rich his entire life through no work of his own. He can't relate to somebody not being able to afford their medicine. He can't relate to that. But if you make it about a power measuring contest between him and some of his rich friends, ooh, all of a sudden, so that would be how I'd play it. I'd make it play like, hey, The health insurance CEOs and Big Pharma are talking shit, Trump. They're talking smack on you. And they're saying you're not going to do Medicare for all because you don't want to make them mad, and they're richer than you. And he'll be like, oh, yeah? I'm the richest. I'm doing it. Would it work? Probably not. But hell, man, if I had the opportunity to try, I'd be foolish not to. What's the worst that can happen? You get kicked out. That's the worst that could happen. Which, would you want to stick around anyway? If I showed up to the White House and Donald Trump is standing there with a bunch of fast food that I personally don't eat, not shaming anyone that does, it's just not for me. We've talked about this before. If you give up fast food for a while, you won't be able to eat it. In my experience, I can't speak for everyone, but in my experience, I gave up fast food for a while because I was a road comic. I was living on the road, and it's really easy to just be like, I need something quick and easy. I'm going to go to Wendy's, McDonald's, whatever. And when I started trying to lose weight, and I've talked about that before on the show, I used to be a lot heavier. I could show you guys pictures of me. You wouldn't recognize me. When I really wanted to make a lifestyle change for myself, for my health, that was one of the things that was part of it. I was like, I know that I live on the road, but I can't eat fast food anymore. And I really made a conscious effort. And I was able to pull it off. But a couple years later, and this was this would have been like 2014 at this point, I had not eaten fast food for about 2 years. And we were in a rush. This was me and some friends. We were going to a concert. We were in a rush. So we had to stop at Wendy's. And I got sick. I couldn't eat it. Like it tasted like I was just shoveling spoonfuls of salt into my mouth. That's what it tasted like to me. Excuse me. It tasted like I was just shoveling salt in my mouth. It was gross. So I kind of realized, I was like, I just can't do fast food anymore. It's not a matter of like, oh, I don't, I don't want it. It's like I can't do it anymore. It literally grosses me out. So anyway, my point is, if I was in a situation where I was visiting with Donald Trump, and I see Donald Trump, and I see a bunch of fast food that I can't eat, I could eat the pizza. I know there was pizza there. I would eat that. I would want to bounce after like 10 minutes anyway. So I would want to try to turn Trump onto Medicare for all, and then I would bounce. Would it work? Probably not. I'm sure it wouldn't. Because he has too many other people that have his ear that don't want him to do that. And how does he feel about it himself? I don't think he has any actual... I think he just loves power. But anyway, I would try to do that. And then I'd be happy with leaving anyway. So the worst that could happen, he'd kick me out, and that'd be fine if he did. I already accomplished what I came to do, which was to try to get him to do Medicare for all by making him jealous of health insurance moguls. I think that's the only approach. All right. Here's some news. Verizon charges new spam fee for texts sent from teachers to students. A free texting service used by teachers, students, and parents may stop working on the Verizon wireless network because of a dispute over texting fees that Verizon demanded from the company that operates the service. All right. Remind, the company that offers the classroom communication service, criticized Verizon for charging the new fee. Remind said its service's text messaging notifications will stop working on the Verizon network on January 28th unless Verizon changes course. The controversy cropped up shortly after an FCC decision that allowed U.S. carriers' text messaging services to remain largely unregulated. To offer our texting service free of charge, Remind has always paid for each text that users receive or send. Now Verizon is charging Remind an additional fee. All right, so quick reminder on what this is all about, and we covered this on the show. A little while ago, the FCC ruled that the carriers for your cell phone service, your Verizon, your AT&Ts, they can, first of all, read your text messages, see your text messages, and they can censor text messages when they want to. Now, this was under the guise of preventing spam. But really, what does it really let them do? Well, it allows them to charge more for text messaging. It allows them to have these new hidden fees for text messaging. They're basically trying to make your text messages an information service instead of a common carrier. And we talked about this. A common carrier is a designation where it's a flowing of information, such as a phone call or something like that. The internet used to be designated a common carrier until Ajit Pai's FCC rescinded that. So now the internet and your text messages are an information service, which not only means that the AT&Ts and the telecom companies of the world have the ability to charge more for them and to price gouge for them, it also means they can see them. And they can dictate what you can and can't see. This is an incredibly dangerous thing that's happening. This FCC is causing irreparable damage. And this goes largely unreported, because a big part of your corporate media is owned by Comcast, or Rupert Murdoch, or Jeff Zucker. People that are either for all of this happening, they're either for net neutrality going away, and your digital rights going away, or they're indifferent to it. So this is happening to your phone. All right, so let's see more about this particular, for instance. Verizon says, again, so here we go. Here's Verizon using that straw man. Verizon says the fee must be charged to fund spam blocking services. Your remind messages aren't spam, but that hasn't helped resolve the issue with Verizon. That fee will increase our cost of supporting text messages to at least 11 times our current cost. Guess what you can do now? Block people. You can block a number. You can block spam text messages. This is a straw man problem that doesn't exist. These problems that Ajit Pai and Verizon and AT&T are saying, oh, we're trying to protect you from spam messages. It's a non-existent problem. It's a non-existent problem. They're making it up so that they can price gouge you for text messaging, and so they can see your text messages. This is a gross overreach. But the industry likes it because they can make more money. And now it's hurting teachers and students, because a service that teachers used to communicate with students, Remind, they can't use it anymore. And again, we got to fight back. We got to fight for net neutrality. And the way to do that is to support those state bills, to try to build municipal broadband in your community. When I was on the road in Florida, I met some people that are going to their town halls to push for municipal broadband. We need to continue that. We need to continue that, because then that'll bleed into phone services too. And a lot of times these internet co-ops, it bleeds into phone services too, which would then preserve your rights to your text messages. So it's a very important cause. Here's a little bit of better news. Legislation would allow ranked choice voting in Baltimore, a new way of counting ballots. Marcus sent this in. Baltimore could become part of a growing movement that would offer more voters a chance to participate in its Democratic primaries and a new way to determine the winners. The Maryland General Assembly will allow a bill, will consider a bill to allow the Baltimore City Council to establish open primary elections or ranked choice voting for primary or general elections. Del Brooke Learman, a Democrat who represents Southeast Baltimore, got the legislation ahead of Wednesday's start of the 90-day General Assembly session. It would authorize the Baltimore City Council to adopt such voting systems if a majority of council members wanted to. If we had ranked choice voting everywhere, our democracy would look so much better. And of course, under the current law, candidates can win a primary or general election with less than 50% of the vote. Same can happen in state elections. Under a ranked choice voting system, city voters would make their top pick for an office, but then could rank the other candidates for that office in order of preference. There are different methods for how to count the votes, but generally, if a candidate doesn't receive the majority, once everyone's number one choices are counted, election officials count voters' second choices and then third choices until a candidate has a majority. In some systems, voters who picked a last place finisher as their top choice can see their number one choice drop from the tally in the second round and have their number two choice counted instead. So there you have it. Baltimore may be another place to get ranked choice voting. There's other alternative voting methods out there, and some argue that there are ones that are way better than ranked choice as far as having more voices heard. But so far ranked choice has seen a lot of resistance because people do not want it. The establishment does not want it. And it does eliminate the whole spoiler thing if we had ranked choice voting. And they're looking into it in Baltimore. So there you have it. So we're going to go into 2020 for a little bit here. Corporate media bias on 2020 Democratic race already in high gear. Let's be clear, one reason mainstream journalists were so wrong about the 2016 election is because they are largely divorced from poor and working class voters. After having been a mainstream TV news pundit, this is from the article written by Jeff Cohen, I am unfortunately addicted to cable news. That is rather unfortunate, Jeff. And all the blather and repetition laughingly overhyped as breaking news, even when it's the same news that's been breaking and breaking and breaking for hours or days. Or in some cases, years. I would add to this. In some cases, years. But I'm more bothered by the repetition of pundits and the narrowness of discussion, resulting in a number of unexamined cliches. Although the Democratic race for president has barely launched, mainstream media bias is already in orbit. As everyone in politics knows, and mainstream pundits acknowledge, the Democratic Party is seriously divided in two. On one side is the party establishment, allied with corporate donors, preaching pragmatism, caution, and incrementalism. There's nothing pragmatic about an incremental solution for a catastrophic problem. Again, there's nothing pragmatic about an incremental solution for a catastrophic problem. So they're preaching falsities. They're preaching stuff that won't work because it has been proven not to work. Doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results is literally insanity. That's what that is. It is insanity. So on one side, you have the people just trying to please the donors because they really have no policy ideas. They have no actual policy perspectives. They just want to please the donors, or they're misguided into thinking that's not what they're doing. On the other side is much of the party's activist base. You don't even need the word activist in there. On the other side is much of the party's base. You know why? Because over 80% of people that identify as Democrats are for progressive policies. Animated by issues and allied with elected officials like Bernie Sanders and a young crop of insurgent Congress members calling for transformative change to protect the planet and people from corporatism and greed. Strange thing, only the corporate Democratic side is regularly represented on MSNBC and CNN. It's not really a strange thing, it's by design, as this article points out. Actually, it's not so strange given the powerful economic forces that own and sponsor mainstream news, Comcast, Time Warner, Jeff Bezos, etc. So, I'm not trying to overly nitpick the article here. I'm really not. But you guys know me. I don't like calling it mainstream media or mainstream news because there's nothing mainstream about it. It represents the elite view of the 1%. There's nothing mainstream about that. Mainstream news is independent media. That's what should technically be called mainstream news. Independent media. Journalists on the ground telling you a story about something. They're right there and they're saying, this is what's happening. I'm seeing it with my own eyes. I'm filming it with my camera. You decide. That's mainstream news. That's what should be considered mainstream news. And I know it's just a matter of verbs. I'm not trying to overly nitpick the article. I'm just trying to... We should call that stuff corporate news because that's definitionally what it is. It's corporate media. It's owned by a small elite group of corporations that have no business being in news. Jeff Bezos has no business being in news. Jeff Zucker, no business being in news. Comcast, no business being in news. It's the equivalent as if McDonald's would get into the news business. We went over that analogy. It's the same thing. It's like if McDonald's got into the news business and all of a sudden you see an article that says eating a Big Mac 3 times a day makes your penis bigger or gives you instant abs. Oh, this is science. I'm sure there's no red flags here. It is the exact same thing. In the United States, the people that control news and information have no business being in news and information. They do have conflicts of interest. That is textbook fascism. Our media structure cannot be saved, and it is not worth saving. It is toxic. So, getting back to this article, the now daily MSNBC and CNN discussions of the Democratic 2020 race, which usually include mainstream print reporters and Democratic operatives singing the same tune, feature a chorus of corporate Democratic talking points, like standards to go moderate. All right, so now they talk about 2016. I have no interest in revisiting any of that. So let's get back to the thesis here. Let's be clear. One reason mainstream journalists, again, we'll substitute. One reason corporate journalists were so wrong about the 2016 election is because they are largely divorced from poor and working class voters of all races. Very true. On last Friday's Meet the Press, MSNBC host Chuck Todd, the actor who poses as a newsman. Chuck Todd is a mediocre actor who is playing a role as a newsman. Chuck Todd knows nothing about news. Chuck Todd is completely clueless. He's not even convinced on climate change until recently when he had to change his tune. He brought on Marcos Molotsas of the Daily Kos, and they're poo-pooing Bernie. I heard about that video. All right. So, good article by Jeff Cohen. Again, I wasn't trying to overly nitpick it, just, making a few observations. And that's something we already know. You get the corporate Democratic view from the corporate media. They try to make it out like those corporate Democrats are the only one that have a chance at winning, and you have to unite and get behind them and shut up because Trump. That's what they want. It's their way at maintaining the status quo. Because really, it's just continuing the money party. That's what it's doing. And we all know what's going to happen in 2020. They're going to try to shove Kamala down our throats. They're going to try to shove Biden down our throats. They're going to try to shove this corporate-approved candidate down our throats who's not going to do Medicare for all, who's not going to address climate change, who's not going to address living wages, who's not going to address fracking, who's not going to... You get the idea. The status quo benefits the corporate elites, and the corporate media is part of the corporate elite, so they try to subtly uphold the status quo. And they try not to make that too obvious by continuing their horse race coverage of Republican versus Democrat, which is corporatist versus corporatist. And again, this is why our media structure, it cannot be saved, and it should not be. It is absolutely toxic. It is absolutely toxic to the idea of the democracy. Of a democracy. And why do we criticize them? Because they have the power. They have the power. It should be a headline every day that our media is owned by an elite group of corporations that have no business being in news. So there you go. And you're seeing that reflected in the 2020 coverage, just like it was reflected in the 2016 coverage, and the 2012 coverage, and the 2008 coverage. 2008 was the first primary I really followed. I was a Dennis Kucinich guy. Dennis Kucinich and Ron Paul were the only two candidates that were actually truly anti-war. MSNBC, who at the time was owned by General Electric, got them off the debate stage as soon as they could by altering their rules so that they couldn't debate. Because they didn't want an anti-war candidate up there. All right. This is from David. Scientists may face death penalty in China for gene editing babies. So we talked about this story before. David shared stuff about this. So let's revisit this and see what's going on here. This is my first time hearing about this. This is the doctor in question right here. The scientists who edited the genes of embryos implanted in a patient via IVF treatment and reportedly created the world's first genetically edited babies could face the death penalty in China, his colleagues have warned. The doctor was placed under investigation after he released videos claiming to have used gene editing technology for 7 couples in fertility treatments to provide their children with genetic resistance to HIV infection. He could face both corruption and bribery charges, which carry the death penalty in China. Wow. Bribery carries the death penalty? That's okay. Reports say he is being guarded at a state-owned apartment in Shenzhen. After his claims last November, the Chinese government moved in and stopped his research, but not until his patient had given birth to twin girls, Lulu and Nana. All right, and that's all we got as far as this article goes. Wow, I'm not fluent in Chinese law in regards to this stuff, nor am I totally fluent in what exactly this guy did. But, I mean, if he was transparent to the patients involved, and he was acting to help them, and if the results have been positive, if everybody's healthy, I certainly don't know why he would be punished, and I certainly think that if he violated whatever rules and should be punished for whatever reason, I certainly think the death penalty is excessive, to say the very least, and that's putting it gently. I think that, and again, I'm not in the know in all the details of this. We covered it when it initially came to the surface a long time ago. Those details aren't fresh in my mind. But I think that if he was transparent with everyone involved, if he discontinued his research when they decided it needed to be discontinued, and if everybody involved is healthy and okay, wow, I think the death penalty seems excessive, to say the very least, if this doctor should be punished at all. Again, I'm not fluent in Chinese law in regards to this, for instance. I'm not even fluent in the for instance itself. I know medicine is a very complicated thing because, we need to draw that line of fostering advancements while at the same time not endangering people to a point where they're in a lot of to the point where it's malpractice. Like fostering advancements, you got to take risks. I understand that. But you have to be careful to the point where there's no oversight whatsoever, where there's no protection whatsoever, and people are put in unnecessary danger. And it's a complicated issue. I'm not a doctor, so I can't explain all the ins and outs, but I understand it is a very complicated issue. And it looks like we'll see what happens here. But, I think that if this guy was trying to help people, I think that the death penalty is beyond unnecessary and completely unfair. So we'll see how all this unfolds. So here is a lesson for everybody. This is from over in our Reddit. We're going to go over to Twitter here. And Daniel Schumann, who works for, he's a policy director for Demand Progress, gives people a roadmap that our Reddit decided was worth seeing. So let's check it out. So this is a Twitter thread between Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and Daniel Schumann. I hope I'm saying the last name right. He's a policy director over at Demand Progress. Now, what's going on here is a full list of your sponsored and co-sponsored bills can be found here. Congress.gov, search. For the old school folks who want this by email, here are the deets. The bill text of the bills will be available at Congress.gov at the different stages of consideration: introduction, committee passage, committee passage, floor consideration, etc. Successful amendments will be published, and that can be found at rules.house.gov. Follow this link. So here's the meat here. Follow this link, and it's govtrack.us. You can set up a Congress.gov for email alerts for any member of Congress or any particular bill. So the reason somebody put this in our Reddit, they said the reason they wanted us to see this is to give people a roadmap on how to keep tally on what is in a bill, A, and how people are voting on said bill. And there is a website where you can set email alerts, and it's available via Congress.gov and rules.gov. We'll go over those web links again, and you can do that. Now, this is something that the government has to make available, but they don't have to broadcast the fact that it's available. Because the powers that be don't really want a well-informed populace. They don't want that. They don't want you to show up and vote. That's why they make it so hard to vote. They don't want you to show up. They don't want you to show up at your city council meetings. That's why they make them at inconvenient times. They don't want you to show up in an agenda. You know, it happened to me. I showed up to a city hall to push for municipal broadband. We got it on a city agenda because we showed up in numbers. That city agenda meeting was at 3 p.m. on a weekday. And they basically told us, don't worry, the industry has our back. And, you know, we've documented all this. You can go to my playlist on municipal broadband and net neutrality to revisit that stuff if this is of interest to you. So I've experienced firsthand in my pursuit of fighting for a cause. And we've all experienced it. Anyone that's fought for a cause has a similar story. They want to suppress the vote. They want you to not pay attention. They don't want you to show up to the meetings. They don't want you to protest. So this is an important roadmap to keep note of, because this is something that the government has to make available to you. What they don't have to do is broadcast that it's available. That's what they don't have to do, so they don't do it. But they do have to make it available to you. So again, you follow the link over at govtrack.us. You can send email alerts for any member of Congress or any particular bill. That website again, govtrack.us. govtrack.us. And you go here to get alerts, and it's a free alert system. And you can use it to find out about any bill or how any member of Congress is voting on any bill. Again, govtrack.us. Go to get alert for email alerts for any member of Congress or any particular bill. So there's a PSA for you. All right, we got time for a little bit more here. And then I'm going to go to the chat to talk to you guys, and then the show is over for today. We're not going to get to everything. Some stuff will have to wait until tomorrow. So this is something else from the Reddit. Glenn Greenwald and Tucker Carlson go on the attack against Tulsi Gabbard's critics. And the person that sent this points out that Glenn Greenwald was defending her. So Glenn Greenwald said that he's not a supporter of her candidacy, that's Tulsi Gabbard, but he said that Tulsi Gabbard is being unfairly attacked. There are some really legitimate and serious concerns that I have, and that have been raised by the real left, not the Democratic Party liberals. And he listed them: her support for the war on terror, her affinity for Hindu nationalism in India, her affection for some really terrible dictators. These are the words of Glenn Greenwald. But what's really going on is that the Democrats hate her for two other reasons. She supported Bernie Sanders over Hillary Clinton in 2016, and she's been questioning a lot of Washington orthodoxy. She deviates from a lot of the Washington consensus. She's hard to put in a liberal, conservative, right-wing, or left-wing box, and that's what Washington really hates. Interesting assessment. And I think it gets at a bigger theme. You know, as we're going through 2020, there are a lot of questions we're going to have about a lot of candidates. Some of them are very, very good questions. Some of them are important questions that we need clarification on. My video editor, Joe, made a great video about Tulsi Gabbard recently. I've not gotten to watch the whole thing yet, but I've watched half of it, and he's doing a really good job addressing his concerns. That should be all of our concerns, and are valid things to address. Now, similarly, does that mean that all concerns are valid? No. Some have more meat than others, so to speak. And, you know, a lot of the Democratic establishment's attacks on Tulsi, some of them are just pretty weak. You know, I mean, talking about when she felt a certain way as a teenager, she grew up in a conservative household. At one point, she was, she was not for gay rights. She was a teenager. She has learned, she has evolved, and she has been pro-gay rights ever since. And it's been reflected in her decisions, in her words, in her voting. So, you know, and I've had this argument with some more, centrist. I use centrist in quotes because if you're a centrist by contemporary U.S. standards, you're conservative. That's just true. I've had this argument. Oh, Tulsi Gabbard, I'm like, no, she's changed. Didn't you change? And it's very ironic. The same people that were rah-rah for Hillary Clinton are saying Tulsi Gabbard can't change. Well, gee, what's the difference there? Hillary Clinton didn't come around on gay marriage until, I believe, after Tulsi Gabbard, first of all. And second of all, she came around because public opinion forced her to. Hillary Clinton was very much in the public spotlight. She had to, because public opinion forced her to. She just swayed with public opinion. Tulsi Gabbard, on the other hand, had an actual change. She was raised a certain way. It influenced her. Then she started exploring things more, learning more, and she had a true, genuine change. Does that mean there aren't some valid criticisms against her? No, surely there are. And I'm still evolving on them myself. But some of the criticisms are totally bogus. And I think this segment is a prime example of that. Glenn Greenwald saying it, hey, there are some criticisms we need to look into, we need to learn on. And I'm still learning on them. I'm still making my own assessments. And I think everybody else should be too, because 2020 is a long fucking way off. We got a while. But there's some bogus criticisms out there that I've already just sort of written off. And I think this article kind of summarizes that well. All right, so to close today, I tweeted about this a little earlier. The LA teacher strike is going on. It is continuing. It started, I believe it officially started yesterday. And here's something. LA schools lost $15 million on day one. Now comes day two of the teacher strike. You know, and I tweeted this. Maybe some of you have already seen it. I find it very, very interesting that a lot of the headlines you're seeing this morning from the media are all about how much money the school districts are losing and not about why the teachers are out there in the first place. You know why they're out there? They're out there because they have up to 45 people in a class, sometimes more. They're out there because they don't have the resources students need, including, oh, by the way, you know one of those things? Not all the schools have a nurse available. That should be the headline. That should have been the headline this morning. Hey, did you know that not all of the schools have a nurse available for students if they need it? So if a kid falls and breaks his or her arm, hopefully somebody knows what to do. Hopefully an ambulance gets it. There's no nurse to help immediately and to take some precautionary things to help that student. That should be the headline everywhere. Hey, did you know that in the fifth largest GDP in the world, the state that has the fifth largest economy in the world, there's not nurses in every school for students? That we're neglecting our children big time? That should be the headline. Not how much money the school lost. Who gives a shit? Their negligence caused this. Their corruption caused this. All right, so let's go to this article. So Los Angeles schools are on the first day of this teacher strike. And there's a $15 million loss. The teachers union it's 31,000 members. That should be the headline. 31,000 people showed up to walk in the rain. This is Southern California. When it rains, the city shuts down. But 31,000 members of the community, teachers and their supporters, showed up anyway and protested because this is unacceptable. That should be the headline. 31,000 on a rainy day, no less. Schools in LA don't have nurses. They don't have nurses. You know, it's amazing. I'm a millennial. I grew up on those teen movies in the late 90s and early 2000s. Where in all those teen movies took place in California, and they would show these schools the kids went to. Like in the movie She's All That, where Usher was the MC. For the school just had an MC. Why not? You're at school. It makes it more entertaining if you have a DJ. And I'll be honest with you guys, I used to think, because, you know, I grew up in Western Pennsylvania. You know, I grew up in a community there, and California, a lot of the punk rock I loved came out of California, and California was just this mystical gem to me, you know? It was just this amazing mystical gem. And I actually used to think that there was some validity to all that. I didn't think that actual celebrities were the MCs in high schools in California. I wasn't that delusional, but I thought they probably actually had that. I thought they probably actually had like an MC type person in their high school, and maybe some high schools did. I don't know for sure, but I used to believe that was for sure true because I would see it in the movies. So how crazy is it? You see these movies glorifying these beautiful institutions that are the public schools in California, and then in reality, what's going on? They don't even have nurses. They stuff about 50 kids in a classroom. You take roll and you finish. The class is already half over. I never taught at the high school level. I did teach at the community college level, and I can tell you, I can't imagine that many students teaching at the community college level. I can only imagine at the high school level. I can only imagine it. So these teachers are out here for good reasons. And instead, all the headlines are just talking about how much money the district is losing. But, well, something needs to change. This is unacceptable. It's unacceptable that a businessman is running the school districts and making these decisions and stifling teachers' abilities to do their job. And it's beyond unacceptable when you have the wealth that California has. There's no reason for this. It is completely unexcusable. So I stand with the teachers. Let me go to you guys, see if you guys are standing with the teachers. And that's how we'll close out today. Standing with the teachers is still continuing. If you're in the California area and you're involved, please let me know. Chris Wynn is saying colleges are worse. Yeah, I guess when I said college, I meant like I taught like public speaking and stuff like that, so you had to have smaller classes. I understand there's there's lecture halls at universities that are an exception to that rule. There's lecture halls that have as many as 100 students. That, of course, is, a different situation. So I should have specified there. Angel, thank you very much for the kind words. Alan, thank you very much for the kind words. Edward has a really good quote here. Here's a quote from Edward Klein. This is a war on education in America. Indeed, I agree. John makes a funny joke. Start building schools in the shape of a pentagon so it gets money. Well said, John. I like that. Well done. Let's see. Hobo, corporate Democrats have been running California a while. This is how they do it. Let's see. David, I support the teacher strike and their demands for a nurse in every school every day, smaller class sizes, and higher teacher pay. And not higher pay for everybody, too. Not just the teachers. Fred Edward, I stand with the teachers, and I sent out the Jimmy Dore Show video. Thank you for doing that, Fred. Very appreciated. Hobo Rody says, Earthquake played my prom. That's really interesting. Are you serious? That's interesting. That's really cool. Omar supports the teachers. Austin says, we all need a raise. Joshua Pegg says, Jesus played his prom. That's awesome. What did Jesus close with? I had a DJ at my prom. Wasn't quite that exciting, but we did have actual catered food there because people thought that we can have catered food and be treated like grown-ups even though we were teenagers, and we didn't have to eat McDonald's. Let's see. Wisdom better than knowledge. Universities get their reputation from exclusion. Yeah, there's some truth in that. Fair enough. It's pathetic that teachers have to pay for school supplies out of their own pockets. Yes, it is. The Mystic Knights of the Oingo Boingo played my high school. That's badass, Marcia. That's really cool. Strikes work, Jilly points out. It's very true. Strikes do work. Fred Edward, all we had was an accordion player at my... Really? You had an accordion player? How did anyone dance to that? Let's see here. First U.S. day of extinction is, David reminds us the Extinction Rebellion's first U.S. day of action is January 26th. Find your local Extinction Rebellion group at xrebellion.org. And that's a great public service announcement, xrebellion.org. Which, by the way, shout out to our sponsors, ZT.com, ZHITEA.com, their T kind of rules, and microbinge.com. Tired of Facebook? Tired of what social media is doing? Check out an alternative, microbinge.com. It's a cool platform. I'm a member of myself. You should sign up today, microbinge.com. Guys, some tour dates coming up. March, I'm going to be in the Gulf area. I'm going to be in New Orleans, Louisiana, Lafayette, Louisiana, Pensacola, Florida, Oxford, Mississippi. Please, romplacone.com for tickets. And in April, we're going to be in Texas. Tickets available now for Houston, Fort Worth, Austin, San Antonio. You can get all those tickets at romplacone.com. Also, if you can support this show on the sustainability end, please do become a patron if you are so able. For a give what you can level, you get all kinds of exclusive content. You're helping me keeping this show going. Without the patrons, this show could not exist. I want to upgrade equipment. I want to continue fighting for municipal broadband. That's a big part of this show. You get the idea. Guys, thank you for making this show possible. Thank you for celebrating our 1-year birthday. And thank you again to Anthony for pointing out that it's our 1-year birthday. I would have lost track of that, to be totally honest. I totally would have lost track of that. So thank you for reminding us. Happy 1-year anniversary, everybody, because you guys are the executive producers of this show. You guys are my EPs. Without you, I wouldn't have a show. It wouldn't be a show. Jason, thank you very much for the Super Chat contribution. Hey, Ron, showing some support from the Bay Area, out here trying to spend independent media sources like you, the Jimmy Dore Show, and TYT to as many people as I can. Thank you, Jason, for that Super Chat contribution. Balthazar, thank you for the Super Chat contribution. This has to be my final reminder. I can't keep throwing money at you so that you will check out free services to get you more money. It's redundant. Balthazar, I appreciate your... I appreciate it very much. I appreciate your dedication to me trying to check out Streamlabs, and I do need to do it. I will, and I will report back to you. Thank you very much. And thank you for your persistence. It means a lot to me. And thank you very much for your Super Chat contribution and your generosity. You guys are awesome. Happy birthday. You make this possible. There's no show without you. Happy birthday. I can't wait to meet more of you in March. I got to meet some of you in January. I can't wait to meet more of you in March and throughout the year. We're coming to the East Coast in June. And I couldn't do it without you guys. And it's amazing to meet some of you in person. And it's amazing to be able to do this show and to get my news in such a cool way. And I hope you guys share that. And thank you for being part of this. I will see you tomorrow, same time, same channel, 1 p.m. Eastern Time, 10 a.m. Pacific Time. Peace.